Silas Gentry had lived alone for 12 quiet years. His ranch sat far from town, near the edge of the dry hills, where the wind blew dust across the fields and coyotes howled at night. There were no neighbors nearby, no visitors. Just silence, hard work, and the sound of his horse's hooves on the ground. The land was rough, but Silas didn't mind. He had grown used to the quiet, and some days he even liked it. People had hurt him before. After his younger brother died in a mining accident, one Silas blamed himself for, he stopped going to town. He didn't trust the world anymore. Each morning, Silas woke up before the sun. He fed the animals, checked the fences, and rode out across the dry land to check the creek beds for signs of water. Most days there was nothing. But that morning was different. That morning, he saw something strange. It happened just past the East Ridge, near an old dry creek that hadn't held water in years. The sun was climbing, turning the hills golden. His horse, Dusty, walked slowly along the edge of the ridge. That's when Silas saw it, something round in the dirt. At first, he thought it was a rock. Maybe a new boulder had been uncovered by the wind. But something about it made him stop. It was too round, too smooth. He pulled the reins. Dusty snorted and stopped. Silas slid off the saddle and stepped closer. His boots crunched on the dry ground. The round shape didn't move, until it did, just slightly, enough to make his stomach twist. Then he saw it clearly, a face, a woman's face, pale and dirty, with dry lips and dark hair tangled with dust. Her eyes blinked slowly, barely open. She was buried in the ground, her whole body hidden under the dirt. Only her head was showing, like a flower planted wrong. Silas dropped to his knees. "Dear God," he whispered. The woman's lips cracked as she tried to speak. "Please," she said so softly it was almost nothing. "Please help me." Silas felt his heart slam in his chest. He looked around, but there was no one else. Only the wide land and the wind. "Hold on," he said quickly. "I got you. You're safe now." He took off his gloves and started digging with his bare hands. The dirt was packed tight, hard as rock. Whoever had buried her had taken their time. They had wanted her to stay there, to die. Silas gritted his teeth and dug faster. His fingers scraped the hard earth. Dust rose into the air. The woman's face winced with pain, but she stayed still. "How long have you been here?" Silas asked gently, not sure she could answer. "Hours. Maybe more," she whispered. Her voice broke with each word. "They said no one would find me." Silas froze. "They?" His eyes scanned the hills again, more alert now. His fingers were bleeding, but he didn't stop. He cleared dirt away from her neck, then her shoulders. As he worked, her face began to change. Less fear, more shock, maybe even a little hope. She was young, mid-20s maybe. Beautiful, even with the dirt and tears. But it wasn't just her looks that held his attention. There was something in her eyes. A sadness. A deep, aching pain that made Silas want to keep digging forever, just to pull her back into the light. "Don't try to talk," he said quietly. "Save your strength." But she shook her head slowly. "You need to know before you help me." Silas paused. The wind howled across the ridge, tugging at his coat. "My name is Mercy," she said. "Mercy Kane." He nodded. "All right, Mercy. I'm Silas Gentry." She opened her mouth, then closed it. "If you help me, they'll come for you too." Her words hit him like a slap. Silas looked around again, eyes sharp. He didn't see anything, but his back crawled with the feeling of being watched. Still, he didn't stop digging. He couldn't. He had seen many hard things in life, but this was evil. Leaving a woman to die in the ground like this, it was something only monsters could do. "I don't care who they are," he said. "You're not dying out here." Bit by bit, her arms came free. He could see rope marks around her wrists, purple and raw. Bruises covered her skin. Someone had beaten her. Silas felt anger rise in his chest, slow and burning. Whoever did this wasn't just trying to scare her. They were sending a message, but they picked the wrong land. Silas Gentry may have lived alone, but he wasn't weak. It took nearly an hour to free her. She didn't scream, not even once. But her face was pale and her breath came fast. Her body was so thin, like she hadn't eaten in days. When he finally pulled her out, she collapsed against him, shaking all over. "Easy now," he whispered. "You're all right, I've got you." She weighed next to nothing, like a bird with broken wings. He lifted her into his arms, careful of her bruises. Dusty stood waiting. But when Silas turned toward his horse, Mercy grabbed his shirt, her hand weak but urgent. "No," she whispered. "Not your house. They know where you live." Silas stopped walking. "Who?" he asked. "Who did this to you?" Her eyes moved to the horizon toward the distant hills. Fear returned to her face. "The Garrett brothers," she said. They found out what I know." Silas felt something dark settle in his gut. He knew that name. Everyone did. The Garretts ran half the territory like wolves. Rich, cruel, and deadly. Saving this woman was about to change everything. And Silas knew, deep in his soul, his quiet life was over. Silas stood frozen for a moment. His arms were wrapped around Mercy's thin, shaking body. Her words echoed in his head like thunder. The Garrett brothers. That name was poison. Everyone in the territory knew them. Wade, Elias, and Marcus Garrett. They were rich and cruel. They ran land, cattle, and people like they were property. If they wanted something, they took it. If someone said no, they vanished. The law never touched them. Most folks were too scared to even whisper their name. Now, Silas had their target in his arms. "All right," he said quietly. "Then we won't go to my house." Mercy was weak, but she gave a small nod of thanks. Silas helped her onto his horse, climbing behind her to hold her steady. She leaned against him, her body cold and trembling. Her hair was still full of dirt and her skin felt like paper. But she was alive. He turned Dusty north toward the back hills. There was an old line shack there, 2 miles out, hidden by trees. It was small, dusty, and half falling apart. But no one ever went there. It would be safe, for now. As they rode through the trees, Mercy's voice came again, soft against the wind. "You should have left me there." Silas frowned. "I don't leave people to die." She didn't speak for a long time. They rode. In silence, the hooves tapping against the dry ground, birds flying away from their path. Finally, she whispered, "You don't know what you've done." "I know enough." Mercy turned her head slightly. "They don't just want the gold I took, they want silence. I saw something. Something they'll kill to keep hidden." Silas didn't answer, but his grip on the reins tightened. The shack came into view at last. A crooked little building with a broken door and a roof patched with tin. Silas helped her down and carried her inside. He laid her gently on an old cot, then grabbed a canteen from his saddlebag. "Drink," he said. Holding it to her lips, she drank slowly, coughing at first. Then she took more. Her color started to come back. Silas lit a small fire in the stove and warmed some beans. When she finished eating, he finally sat across from her and looked her in the eye. "Start from the beginning." Mercy took a shaky breath. "I was married once. His name was Thomas. We lived near the river, but he got sick. Died during the fever 2 years ago. After that, I had nothing. No money, no family. I was alone." Silas listened, silent. "One day, old man Garrett came through town. He offered me work, cleaning, cooking, whatever. I didn't want to, but I had no choice." Her voice grew cold. "He didn't want a maid. He wanted someone to keep him company. He made me live in his house. 3 years I stayed there, because if I left, I knew I wouldn't make it." Silas felt anger crawl through him, slow and deep. "He died last month. Heart trouble, people said. But I know the truth. I saw it." She reached into her torn dress and pulled out a small leather pouch. Inside, gold coins shimmered in the firelight. "He gave me these before he died. Told me it was payment. For my time. For my silence." Silas stared at the coins. Blood money, he thought, and Mercy had taken it. No wonder the Garrett boys were after her. But that's not why they buried me, she said, eyes dark. She sat up a little even though her body shook. It was Marcus, the youngest son, the wild one. He came to the house that night yelling at his father. I was upstairs, but I heard everything. He was angry about money, about the land, about how his father was giving too much to the church, and to me. Silas leaned in, jaw tight. Then I heard a crash. Silence. I ran downstairs and Marcus was standing over his father's body. There was blood everywhere, a fire poker in his hand. Mercy looked away. He saw me. He smiled, said, "Accidents happen to lonely, old men, and to women who see too much." A cold silence filled the room. I ran, she said. I didn't stop. I took the coins. I took a letter from the old man's desk, a letter he was writing, a confession. Her eyes locked with his. It has names, dates, people the Garretts hurt, killed. I was going to take it to the marshal in Dunslow, but they caught me outside of town, tied me up, said they'd bury me alive, let the vultures finish the job. Silas felt sick. They thought no one would find me, she whispered. They said I'd disappear like all the others. She pulled a folded paper from her bodice, wrinkled but dry. She handed it to Silas. He read the first lines. It was real. The old man had written it. A list of crimes. Blood on every page. They don't know I still have it, she said. They think it burned. Silas looked at her. This broken woman, who had survived the dirt, the pain, the silence. She hadn't just lived. She had fought. She had carried the truth when no one else could. You didn't just take gold, he said. You took their power. Mercy nodded. And they'll come for me again. Outside, thunder rumbled. The wind picked up. A storm was coming. And maybe something worse. Silas stood up and loaded his rifle. Let them come, he said. But deep inside, he knew the truth. The minute he pulled her from the ground, he had started a war. And now, there was no going back. The storm hit just after midnight. The sky had been growling for hours, but now it broke open like a cracked egg. Thunder rolled across the hills, shaking the ground. Rain poured down in sheets, soaking the dry land. The old shack groaned, and the wind and cold air slipped through the cracks in the wood. Silas didn't sleep. He sat near the door with his rifle in his lap, listening, waiting. Mercy slept on the cot under his old coat. Her breathing was soft now. Her fever had dropped. Her hands no longer shook. But the fear in her eyes hadn't gone away. Every time she stirred, she looked at the door, like she expected it to open and end her life. Silas knew that kind of fear. He had lived with it once, long ago after his brother died. That same fear had made him walk away from the world. But now, he was walking back into it. For her. He checked the folded letter again, the old man Garrett's confession. It told of crimes, bribes, murders, and land stolen by force. It was all there, in black ink. If this reached the territorial marshal, the Garrett Empire would fall. But if the brothers got it first, it would all be burned and forgotten, and Mercy would die for knowing the truth. A sharp knock sounded at the back wall. Silas jumped up, rifle ready. Then he heard her whisper, "They found us." He peeked out through the small side window. Lightning lit the trees outside. 3 horses, 3 riders. The Garrett brothers. They moved slowly, like men who had time to kill. Silas recognized the tallest one, Wade Garrett, the oldest, the meanest. He was known for hanging men by their ankles and watching them suffer. He was a killer without mercy. Silas pulled Mercy close and led her to the back of the shack. "Stay down," he whispered. She clutched the coat tighter. Her lips trembled, but she nodded. Voices outside. "Check the shack," Wade barked. Silas moved to the front door, heart pounding. He aimed his rifle. If they came in, they wouldn't leave, but they didn't kick the door. They circled, slow, careful. "We know you're in there," Elias shouted. His voice was rough, like old sandpaper. "Give us the girl and no one else has to die." Silas didn't answer. He looked at Mercy. Her eyes begged him not to give her up. "I'll handle this," he said softly. He stepped outside into the rain. Lightning flashed. The brothers turned. All three stared at him from the shadows, soaked to the bone, but smiling like wolves. "Well, well," Wade said. "Didn't expect a man like you to get involved. You don't know what she is." "I know enough," Silas said. Marcus, youngest, with a thin scar on his chin, spoke next. "She's a thief and a liar. Took what didn't belong to her." "She took her life back," Silas replied. "That's not stealing, that's surviving." Wade stepped forward. "Last chance, rancher. Walk away." Silas raised his rifle. "Last warning. Leave now or you won't walk at all." Silence fell. Then Marcus laughed. "You think we're scared of one lonely man with a gun?" "You should be," Silas said. "You've never fought a man who lost everything already." The brothers spread out, ready to attack. But before they could move, Mercy stepped out of the shack. Her dress clung to her body from the rain. She held the letter high above her head even as her hands shook. "Looking for this," she shouted. All three brothers froze. "Your father wrote it," she yelled over the thunder. "Confessed everything, his crimes, your crimes. You think killing me will erase it?" Elias took a step forward, but Wade held him back. "What do you want?" Wade called out. Mercy's voice broke. "I want you to pay. I want you to stop. I want people to stop disappearing." Marcus's face twisted with rage. "You should have stayed buried." He pulled a pistol, but Silas fired first. The shot hit Marcus in the shoulder, spinning him around and dropping him in the mud. Chaos broke out. Elias fired back. Wade charged forward. Silas grabbed Mercy and dragged her behind the shack. "We run," he told her. "Now." They ran into the storm. Mud splashed up their legs. Branches tore at their clothes. Behind them, angry voices cursed through the trees. They didn't stop running, not until they reached the ridge. There, under the trees, Silas stopped and turned. He fired 2 more shots into the dark. He didn't know if they hit, but it slowed the brothers long enough. They kept going. Mercy's breath came in gasps. Her legs wobbled. Silas held her up. "We're almost there," he whispered. She looked at him, tears mixing with the rain. "I'm sorry," she said. "I never wanted to drag you into this." "You didn't," he said. "I walked in myself." They reached a narrow canyon, one the Garretts wouldn't risk in the dark. A flash flood had carved it deep and sharp. It would hide them for now. They crawled into a dry gap between rocks and waited, both soaked, both shaking. Silas held her close. "You're safe," he said. "No," she whispered. "Not yet." She reached into her dress and pulled out the letter again. "There's more," she said. "More names, more crimes. This letter, it's not just about your land or mine. It's about dozens of people." She looked up at him with wide, fearful eyes. "They've been doing this for years." Silas felt a chill that had nothing to do with the rain. This wasn't just about Mercy, or gold, or one dead man. It was about something far bigger, and now they were the only ones who knew the truth. The storm had come, but the real danger was just beginning. The canyon stayed dark through the night. Rain kept falling, but slowly the thunder faded. The land went quiet, like it was holding its breath. Silas and Mercy huddled beneath the rocks, cold and sore. Their clothes were wet, and their bodies, bruised, but neither of them spoke of pain. There were bigger things than bruises now. They had a letter that could burn the Garrett brothers to the ground. But holding truth wasn't enough. They had to get it to someone who could use it. Silas looked at Mercy in the faint morning light. Her eyes were tired but steady. She had been buried alive and still fought to live. She had survived evil. But now she wasn't just surviving. She was ready to fight back. "There's a trading post 5 miles east," Silas said. "Dutch Morrison runs it. He's fair, knows the right people. He'll get this letter to the marshal." Mercy nodded. "Then we ride now, before the Garretts find us again." They climbed out of the canyon and headed east, walking fast through the dripping trees. The sun began to rise behind them, painting the sky orange and gold. But the peace didn't last. From the top of a ridge, Silas spotted them. 3 riders, Wade, Elias, and Marcus, bandaged but still riding hard. "They're coming," Silas said. Mercy's jaw tightened. "Then we don't stop." They pushed forward, faster. Silas's horse, Dusty, waited at a grove near the creek, right where he had left him. They climbed on and galloped hard toward the trading post. The land blurred past them. Trees, rocks, old fences, all a rush of color and wind. Mercy held tight to Silas's waist, the letter pressed between them. By the time they reached the post, the sky was full of light. Smoke rose from the chimney. A bell above the door swung in the breeze. Dutch, an older man with a long beard and kind eyes, stepped out with a cup of coffee. "Silas," he said, surprised. "You look like hell." "No time," Silas said. "We need your help. This is Mercy Kane, and this—" He held out the folded letter. "This needs to reach the marshal today. Lives depend on it." Dutch took the letter, opened it, and his face changed. "Good Lord," he muttered. This is everything." He looked up. "I'll send it with my boy. He's fast. No one will stop him." Before he could turn, a gunshot rang out. The cup fell from his hand. Dust flew into the air as 3 horses charged toward the post. Silas turned, rifle ready. Mercy pulled Dutch back inside. The Garretts had found them. Wade shouted as he dismounted, "Hand her over, and give us what she stole." Silas stepped out onto the porch, rifle raised. "No," he said. Elias fired. The bullet missed by inches. Silas fired back, hitting Elias's leg. The man dropped, screaming. Mercy pulled a second rifle from Dutch's wall. She had never fired one before, but she learned quick. Wade ran for cover behind a wagon. Marcus circled, trying to sneak around. Dutch handed his son the letter. "Go," he whispered. "Ride like the devil. Don't stop until you see the marshal." The boy took off out the back, disappearing into the trees. Gunfire echoed. Silas ducked behind a barrel, his heart racing. "We can't let them stop that." "Letter," he told Mercy. "That's all that matters now." Wade shouted from behind the wagon. "You think this ends with paper? That letter won't save you." But Silas knew it wasn't just paper anymore. It was proof. It was justice. It was everything. Mercy took a deep breath. "We end it now." She stepped out, aimed, and fired at Marcus, hitting his shoulder again. He cried out and dropped his pistol. Silas took aim at Wade. "You hurt too many," he said coldly. "Buried too many." Then he fired. The bullet struck Wade in the chest. The man staggered, his face full of shock. He dropped to his knees, then fell. It was over. The silence that followed was thick. Elias crawled away, moaning. Marcus lay in the dust, whimpering. Silas lowered his rifle. Mercy stared ahead, her hands shaking. Dutch came out, his face pale. "Your boy's safe," he said. "He's gone." Silas nodded. "Then it's done." "No," Mercy said, stepping forward. "It's just beginning." She walked to the center of the yard, the wind catching her torn dress. She stood tall. "I won't hide anymore," she said. "They can't bury the truth again. Not ever." That night, the news spread like fire. The marshal came. The letter reached his hands. Arrests were made. Witnesses came forward. The Garrett empire, built on fear and silence, collapsed. Marcus and Elias were taken away in chains, and Mercy Kane was no longer a forgotten woman in the dirt. She was the key to a truth that changed everything. Weeks passed. The rain stopped. Grass grew. Again in the dry creek bed in Silas. He didn't live alone anymore. He built Mercy a small home beside his ranch. Not because she needed saving, but because they had saved each other. Sometimes, late at night, they would sit on the porch, watching the stars. No more fear, no more running, only peace. And when people asked how they met, Silas would just smile. "I found her," he'd say. "Buried in the ground, but she was never lost. She was buried alive, but she rose stronger. And with her, the truth finally rose too."